Okay, this is Razzle Dazzle news because in the olden days, I don't know, at least in World War One, they used to paint ships this color for combat because they didn't have um, radar in those days. So everything was optical. You had to eyeball where you're going to send your torpedo. And if you had Razzle Dazzle, it made it very hard for your eye to get a fix on that ship. So today we're going to talk about cars and trucks and four-wheel drives because apparently Ford has got a new Ford Bronco and it's going to compete with the Jeeps. Now, I complained before about automobiles and trucks. I said they all look the same, primarily because of fuel economy. They all have to have this kind of bulbous look, wind tunnel look, which means they all look the same and they're boring. And I mean, a Jeep does look different, but the Jeeps from, present day on the lot and the Jeeps from, I don't know, 15 years ago, they're identical. They haven't changed anything. So maybe if Ford brings back the Bronco, Jeep will change the look of the Jeep a little bit, updated. I doubt it. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is the price of these vehicles. These vehicles are, let's go with $50,000. No one is going to take a $50,000 Bronco or Jeep and really use it going off-road. You might scratch the paint. No one is going to use these vehicles except as fancy city cars. Do they need all this four-wheel drive stuff? Maybe if you live in Minnesota and there's a snowstorm, but pretty much it's all for show. If you want a vehicle to go off-wheel drive, probably buy a 10 to 15-year-old four-wheel drive pickup truck. Because then if you scratch it because the brush, you go through a narrow section and there's lots of brush, it scratches your paint, you're not going to get too worried about it. You're not going to run down to Mako and have them repaint your vehicle or something. They have all these bells and whistles on them, but I drove a vehicle a million years ago that had crank windows. Before they had power windows, they had crank windows. And the advantage of crank windows is they're not power. The advantage of crank windows is you don't have these little electrical wires going to them that can short out. The advantage of crank windows is, okay, your friend drives you to a store and they take the keys, go into the store, and you didn't want to go in the store for whatever reason, so you're in the car. If you have electric windows, power windows, you cannot put the windows down because the driver's taken the keys. But if you've got crank windows, you can put the window down and get some air. I like manual things in a car. I like a manual transmission. Mostly. The only time an automatic transmission tops a manual transmission is if you're in a massive traffic jam every day. You are on a street where it's stop and go traffic. You go 4 feet and then you got to stop. and wait, and then finally the traffic moves another 4 feet. Shifting for that is very difficult, and so automatic transmissions are better for that kind of. If you got that though, maybe you should move out of that city, move as far away from it as you can. I mean, who wants to be in a traffic jam like that every day? But for the rest of the time, manual things are better. Why? Just because you get frustrated by automatic things that don't do what they say they're going to do. You know, it's like you're going to pass somebody. If you've got a manual, you gear down into a lower gear so you get more power, and then you pass. With an automatic transmission, you step on the gas and you hope that the automatic transmission will gear down so you can have power. But if it doesn't, maybe you really shouldn't have passed somebody because there's a car coming way down the way. But with the manual thing, they're going to be geared in the power gear, and you're going to go toot toot, and you're going to be there. But with the automatic transmission, you step on the gas and it didn't gear down. Son of a bitch! You're supposed to gear down when I really press hard on the accelerator. It didn't do it, and you're not going fast enough to do your turn. Automatic choke. Now, you might not even heard of automatic choke, but in the 1970s, we had a Toyota Corolla, manual transmission, manual windows. If it was 40 below and the Toyota was parked on the road, not plugged in, you've heard of, maybe if you're in deep south, you don't have plug-it-in block heaters, but not plugged in, the Toyota Corolla with the manual choke. It's just like a little bar that you push back and forth. And with that thing, if it's 40 below, that car will start at 40 below with a manual choke. But if you took, I don't know, let's say 1970s, an Oldsmobile from General Motors with an automatic choke, if you don't plug that sucker in, it ain't gonna start 40 below. And even if it is plugged in, it might not start. Which means you gotta push the son of the bitch out of the driveway onto the road so you can get the car out that's, in front of the. This is the problem with these thin driveways that you park two cars in. They're very heavy. A 1979 Oldsmobile, thousands of pounds, and it's all froze up. You got to push on it to get it out of the driveway. Toyotas, on the other hand, were small, agile. If you ever did have to push them, why would you push them? Well, let's say your battery wouldn't make the car go. But you have a manual transmission. What you could do is you could push the car. You get 2 or 3 guys and push the car and get some speed, and you're in neutral. And then what you do is you put it into gear and just easily let off the clutch. The car's motion, once it gets in gear, will get the engine going, and you can pop start that car. Amazing thing to do. So, how about all these electronic things on cars these days? Like if you buy a Jeep, I'm not sure about the Jeeps. Maybe the high-end Jeeps, but different Chrysler products. Instead of having the old-fashioned transmission, now they got a little dial that you turn. What's the problem with this dial? It's hard to see what gear you're in. I mean, it's really difficult if you can't tell if you're in first gear or reverse. So, I don't like these electronic dial things to dial in your transmission. I don't think they're going to change it, but I don't like them. I wouldn't have one. Radios. I like the old-fashioned AM radio from the 1970s with push buttons. You just set your favorite stations in and then you got push buttons to get you there. Now they have electronic ones. But I like, a big button that pushes in instead of just like a tap thing that you tap. It's just like more likely that you're going to hit the button that you want. I guess I like backup cameras. If I was going to buy a Bronco or a Jeep, what would I buy? I just told you I wouldn't buy either of them. I'd buy a 10-year-old pickup truck with four-wheel drive. But if I had to have one or the other, who makes a better vehicle? Chrysler or Ford? Ford. Who makes a better vehicle? Ford or General Motors? Ford. Who makes a better vehicle? Toyota or Ford? Toyota. What would I rather have? A Japanese car or a German car? Japanese, anytime. They're just way more reliable. They go forever. Honda goes forever. Whereas if you get a German car, very expensive. Parts are very expensive, and you have to wait for weeks for them to ship your part from Germany to North America. So, sorry, I won't go with the German car.